here it comes. The Big Ten Conference payouts. 16 of their 18 members in 2026 is going to be a little bit north of $90 million each. Holy smokes. Welcome to episode 404 of College Football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Pflugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do as well, please subscribe to our channel. Smash the like button if you like our content. Share the video with your family and friends. Let's not waste any more time. I know you are all very, very busy. Let's get to it. Jon Wilner, the Mercury News. Washington's budget forecast provides clues to Big Ten revenue distributions as an 18-team conference. The West Coast Quartet will join the Big Ten in 44 days. Thanks to a public presentation by one member of the group, Washington, we can sketch the financial benefits accompanying the move, not just for Washington. We're going to be able to figure out what the other Big Ten schools are going to be making in 25 and 26. Washington officials went before the university's Board of Regents last week with a proposed budget for the 24-25 fiscal year. The projected revenues, $165 million. Expenses, $167 million, as reported by the Seattle Times, are comparable to the totals of Washington's final year in the Pac-12. But one number was of particular interest to the hotline. $42 million in revenue from the Big Ten and NCAA distributions. From that number, the broad fiscal picture gains focus, not only for the Huskies, but their fellow transplants, Oregon, USC, and UCLA. And I'm going to say again, it brings into focus how much revenue the conference payouts are going to be for the other Big Ten schools in just a couple years from now. Allow us to explain. The majority of conference and NCAA revenue distributions can be grouped into three buckets. NCAA tournament units, which are based on the number of games played by a conference over a 6-year period and paid out to the schools through the respective conferences. The second bucket is postseason football payouts with college football playoff and New Year's Six bowls as a primary source of cash. And the third bucket is the big one, the media rights agreements for regular season and conference championship broadcasts of football and men's basketball. Washington and Oregon are entering the Big Ten as half-share members of the media rights bucket, with each school expected to receive about $30 million from the conference in 24 and 25. It's very important to realize something. Washington and Oregon are coming in as half members in the media rights bucket, but not in the other buckets, not in the other two buckets. Keep that in mind. That indicates a full share of media rights next year through deals with Fox, CBS, and NBC will be worth about $60 million each. Now, let's apply Washington's math to everyone else. The Huskies expect $42 million from the conference based on the presentation to the Regents. It might be a little bit more of that. It might be a little bit more. It might be $2 to $3 million more. We'll get into it after the end of the article. Back to the article. If we add the half share of media rights revenue, the Huskies will not collect $30 million to the total revenue figure, $42 million. It suggests the schools receiving full shares, including USC and UCLA, will collect checks worth about $72 million from the conference. That represents a 20% increase over the most recent distribution figure available. So, what Jon Wilner is saying, and it's correct to a certain point, about $60 million of that is the media rights budget, and then schools are going to get about $12 million more when you include the other two revenue buckets that we talked about earlier in this article. So USC and UCLA are going to get about $12 million more in the other two revenue buckets, including that $60 million in the media rights, and Washington and Oregon are going to get $12 million more than the $30 million of their media rights buckets. In 2022-23 fiscal year, the final football and basketball seasons under the Big Ten's old media rights deal, the long-standing members received an average total distribution of $60.5 million. The distributions of 23 and 24 will be based on the new media rights agreement, Fox, NBC, and CBS, but paid before the arrival of the West Coast schools. Those figures won't be made public until the Big Ten releases its 2024 tax documents next spring. The payouts of the upcoming competition season with all 18 teams, those totals won't be available until the spring of 2026. And that's what I'm going to focus on here in just a little bit. With all the immediate contracts, the Big Ten deal includes an escalator clause. The payments in the first year are far lower than the payments in 29 and 30, the final year of the agreement. But because year one of the Big Ten's agreement with Fox, NBC, CBS unfolded in 23 and 24, before the West schools joined the conference, the full share payment of $60.5 million cited by USA Today could be even lower than what would be typically the case. However, applying the insight gained from Washington's budget presentation to the other breadcrumbs available, including the looming bump in college football playoff payments, it appears the full share of Big Ten schools will take home in excess of $90 million in conference distributions in the second half of the decade. And I'm going to make the argument it's going to start happening in 2026. We'll get to that in a second. And I guess that is the second half of the decade, but it's at the beginning of the second half of the decade. For Washington and Oregon, that likely means paychecks in the $60 to $65 million range. Also unknown, the likelihood of an intact Pac-12 reaching the subscription goals and $25 million school Apple Media deal that would have triggered additional revenue guarantees. It's all guesswork, all of it, but clearly the difference between Pac-12 cash and Big Ten cash for the Ducks and Huskies is substantial, even as half-share members of their new home. I just wanted to show a couple other things here. Hold on a moment. This was Brian Fisher reporting yesterday. Of note, Michigan's recently approved fiscal year 2025 budget, a projected $75.43 million in Big Ten distributions. That's up $12.9 million from fiscal 24. So that's $75 million. Now, this is hard to all keep track, but that first major bucket of revenue, $60 million. And then John Wilner believes there's going to be about another $12 million in distribution payments for the other two revenue buckets with bowl tie-ins and tourney credits and all that stuff. Michigan is anticipating $15 million on top of the $60 million, so about $75 million. It's a projection. However, this is before the college football playoff expanded distribution model takes into effect. That Michigan $75 million, what they're getting this year, that still has the projection that the $6 million that they received in the previous year playoff distribution model, where they got $6 million, about $6 million, Michigan, that's going to be included in the next year revenue. That $6 million is going to be replaced by $21 million that each Big Ten school is going to get in playoff distribution. SEC schools are going to get a big jump to $23 million besides the $6 million. Big 12 and the ACC are going to go from $6 million each of their universities playoff distribution up to about 12, 13, 14 million. So what basically this is Michigan's $75 million in conference payout projection for 25 is going to reach $90 million. a little bit more than 90 million for 2026. Because you're going to be adding $15 million. 6 minus $21 million in playoff revenue is $15 million. The Big Ten schools are going to reach that $90 million. Plus, you got an escalator clause when it comes to your media rights. So that's going to get bumped up a couple of $1 million. So Big Ten schools are going to reach over $90 million in conference distribution, conference payouts by 2026. It's going to happen before 2026, but it's going to be publicly released to everybody in the spring of 26 that Big Ten schools are going to get over $90 million each. Just a reminder of why schools like Florida State and Clemson are trying to do everything they can to get out of the ACC, because it's coming. The gulf is here. Florida State's going to be $35 million behind every Big Ten school and every SEC school, Florida State and Clemson, and the other ACC schools every year going forward, and that number is only going to climb. Remember, in 2030, 2029, the Big Ten is going to be starting to renegotiate their Tier 1, Tier 2 media package contract, and the ACC will not be doing that because their contract goes into 2036. So that $35 million gulf between Florida State and the rest of the Big Ten and the SEC schools is only going to grow. So it's coming. It is here, basically. But by 2026, it's going to be official. Conference distributions for each Big Ten school, 16 out of the 18, are going to be a little bit north of $90 million in climbing. Put down your comments and thoughts in the comments section below the video. The motivation is there for Florida State and Clemson to keep doing what they're doing, and the motivation has got to be climbing for other ACC schools to try to do the same. I'm looking at you, North Carolina. I'm looking at you, Miami. Buckle up, brace for impact. Holy smokes, until next time. From all of us at College Football's Peek Around the Corner to all of you, please, you all take great care of each other. Thank you so very much.